I always tell the company premature optimization is the root of all evil. Sometimes you don't really care about scaling. You don't need a system that is 1000x more scalable, if it requires a lot of manpower. And a lot of the early conversation that we had inside the R&D was me telling them I understand the perfect solution would include SQS, SNS, S3, Postgres, and Redis. But what would be a fine solution that will hold us up for the next year? Because who knows if that particular feature is really that important. My name is Itiel Schwartz. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Commodore.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries who share in the critical moments of what it takes to change an industry and build and lead a team that has your back. I'm your host, Noah Labhart, and today how Itiel Schwartz built the platform to monitor your Kubernetes and discover root causes to your infra problems. All this and more on Code Story. For Itiel Schwartz, it's hard to remember life before his current venture. He studied computer science and psychology in school, and during that time he started working for eBay. He's 32 years old, he thinks, and is married with a young family. Outside of hiking and binge-watching TV, he's a big fan of coffee and bakeries. In spending a lot of time in the infrastructure world, he found out that in the world of DevOps troubleshooting, there's a lot of chaos to sift through. He thought it would be amazing to build a tool to impact Kubernetes and the entire infra ecosystem. This is the creation story of Commodore.
Commodore is a Kubernetes troubleshooting platform. We help DevOps and developers to find, detect, and solve issues in Kubernetes very fast, very easily. And basically, we take all of this very cumbersome, complicated process of understanding what the hell changed, what the hell happened inside my Kubernetes cluster, and we simplify this process by only allowing the user to see the problems, their root cause, and what we believe is the best way in order to solve them. So we are taking years of experience that we have inside the company, both in the world of troubleshooting and Kubernetes, and we're simplifying that for our users. And we integrate with existing tools such as Datadog, Prometheus, New Relic. We don't replace them. We believe that those tools are doing a great job telling you the symptoms, telling you that you have problems, while Commodore is much more focused on allowing you to understand how did the system change over time, what might be a possible root cause for what you're experiencing. I've done infra for the last decade or so. I've done it for for big enterprises such as eBay, and also for small companies. And I really like solving issues, solving problems. And in my last job, I was the first developer in an Israeli startup named Rookout. And Rookout, for anyone who don't know them, is a company that helps adding non-breaking breakpoint for developers. They allow you to troubleshoot dynamically. And there I was, first of all, responsible for building all of the infrastructure. So I became really familiar with Kubernetes, and I loved the project from day one. I love the community, I love the terminology, I love how you interact with it. So after years of doing Packer and AWS and Google and all of those very complicated things, Kubernetes felt really elegant for me. One of the things that make Kubernetes so great is that so many people are contributing to make it even better. When I worked for Rookout, I also helped selling the product as a solution engineer, because I'm a technical guy and I also know how to talk with customers. So I was exposed to a lot of Rookout customers, and there I found out how complex is not only understanding where to put the breakpoint for a specific Java or Python program, but overall knowing where to look at once you have a problem, knowing when did the system change, who deployed the last version, what commits were added in the last version, what wrecking changes were added in the last version. I found out that in this world of high level troubleshooting or DevOps trying to troubleshoot, there is a lot of chaos and a lot of unclarity. And it didn't really happen for me from a very personal experience, because I spent a lot of time building those kind of like monitoring and solution in the companies that I worked for. So it made me understand the importance of like building a system that is the go-to tool for troubleshooting. And because I also like felt the pain, and I also implemented and built those kind of systems in like previous companies and in Rookout, I simply thought it will be amazing if I can build something that will impact all of the ecosystem and impact Kubernetes as a whole. Like Kubernetes was born like from my pain, and my partner Ben Ofiri worked with Google that developed Kubernetes obviously, and he also done infra related like jobs and tasks there. So we both believe that it's something that is really missing in today's market. And 1.5 years into the startup, I'm pretty happy to say that it was the right choice.
Tell me about the MVP, so that first product you built. How long did it take you to build, and what sort of tools did you use to bring it to life?
First of all, we develop it in Kubernetes, like we're a Kubernetes shop. We love Kubernetes, so we use Kubernetes. The first MVP was what we believe the most crucial thing that is currently missing, and that is knowing how your cluster is changing over time. What we did is we install an agent for our customers running as part of the cluster, and that reports every time there's any kind of change inside the cluster. For example, a new image, the number of replicas change, the number of CPU limit, the config map that change. We sat there, we audited everything, and we knew when and how the system changed over time, and we created a timeline for our users. That is still the backbone of Commodore, and this is what we believe the most important thing. I think from the second that we started working on it to like the first customer that played with the system and tried it, it was 3 months, I believe. We really tried to work on the bare minimum. And looking now at the system like that we built back then, it was really bare bone, but we felt that it will bring value to our users. And the first 3 companies that installed us, like I'm happy to say that they really saw value in this. And like we did help them to solve issues. It was like an amazing experience knowing that what you've done really helped someone.
With any MVP, you've got to make certain decisions and trade-offs about what you're going to start with, what you're not going to build, what debt you're going to take on technically. Tell me about some of those decisions and trade-offs you had to make and how you coped with those decisions.
It was super hard. Like, let's be honest, it was super hard. So for every feature, for every screen, for every design, like you need to ask yourself, do I really need this specific feature in order to bring value to the user? And there were so many big and small decisions that we needed to make. And I can share with you like a battle story. We wanted to have in the screen back then 3 different screens, like 3 different capabilities. I won't like go into the deep dive, but one of them showed you all of the services that are running on a specific cluster. The other one showed you a timeline per each service. You go to a service and you see its timeline. And the third one was a high-level overview of everything that changed across your system, like a macro-level view. So we had those 3 screens, and we tried developing all 3 at the same time. But when we were really close to releasing it, we understand that the quality was quite bad. The high-level screen that showed everything that changed across the system simply didn't work as well as we expected. So now we had like a very strong like decision to make. Are we going to take like 1/3 of the product and simply release without it, or are we going to try and make it work? I can say that we did try to make it work for a short while, and then it was obvious it's not worth it. We decided to kill it. Like basically, we decided to put on hold 1/3 of the product in order to make sure the other 2 works as expected. It wasn't an easy decision because we were really invested in it, but I think it was the right decision at the time. And a couple of months later, we added this very important screen that allowed you to see everything that changed across cluster, across services, complete system timeline. But back then it was hard, like killing 1/3 of your product in order to save the other 2/3.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta. You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number 1 priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. And obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors. But they take time and energy pulling you away from building and shipping. And that's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups like yours get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. How, you ask? Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. And the platform connects you with trusted vCISOs to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. Join over 8,000 companies, including many Y Combinator and Techstars startups who trust Vanta. Simplify compliance and get $1,000 off at vanta.com/codestory. That's vanta.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Kinsta. Between juggling client meetings, managing your website, and keeping up with everyday tasks, who has the time to stress out about website security? Well, with Kinsta, the technical stuff is taken care of, so you can focus on what you do best. Kinsta provides managed hosting for WordPress, offering lightning-fast load times, top-tier security, and unmatched human-only customer support. Whether you're a business owner, web developer, or running a digital agency, Kinsta makes managing your website easy and efficient. Kinsta provides enterprise-grade security, being one of the few hosting providers for WordPress with SOC 2 and other certifications, guaranteeing the highest level of security for your website. Thanks to their unlimited free expert-led migrations, Kinsta ensures a smooth transition for you from other hosting providers. Customers have reported 200% faster load times post-migration to their platform. What I find cool about Kinsta is their fast and reliable customer service and premium features that are included at no extra cost. Ready to experience Kinsta's hosting for yourself? Get your first month free when you sign up at kinsta.com today. That's KINSTA.com. So, you've got your MVP, you're getting some traction. How did you progress the product from there and mature it? And I think to give context where I'm going with that is, how did you build your roadmap and decide, okay, this is the next most important thing to build?
I think what drives us the most is like customer feedback. So it was customer feedback from people that we talk with and from customers, design partners, mentors, advisors, like telling us where are their pains, where do they need Commodore to step in and to help them. So we try to make sure that the product answers real needs. Regarding like the roadmap, there is what we believe this is a perfect product. If we'll do A, B, C, D, E, like if we do everything, it's clear that the product will be amazing. The problem is that we have only 3 developers, so we need to choose one. So a lot of like customer feedback on one hand, and the other hand was going really deep into the Kubernetes community, understanding the pains of customers that we didn't really meet so far, understanding where is the market going for. And I think like it's a constant like prioritization loop of releasing something, getting the feedback, understanding if we are on the right track. If we are, let's double down on this. If we are not, let's kill it. So it's a lot of like small decision that adds up to like one unified platform. On the other hand, trying to remember what would an amazing product look like and what is like the goal that we are striving.
So let's switch to team then. So how did you go about building your team? And what did you look for in those people to indicate they were the winning horses to join you?
First of all, take people that you know if you can. I was lucky enough to work in 2 really great companies, both Forter and Rookout. So I just took like the best employees from there, and I was like lucky enough for them to join me along the way. So like if you can work with people that you already know, I think the most important thing for startup in this area is the ability to work with a lot of uncertainty and the ability to move fast without being afraid. So all of our first developers have this in common. They are not afraid of doing stuff that, like sometimes when I think about it, maybe we should be a little bit more afraid. But having like builder type mentality that is not afraid to fail and is not afraid to have a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unclarity, I think it's like a must for fresh developers. And this is like the kind of things that we looked for. It wasn't even like necessarily a lot of experience. We took like people who were like quite young, but they showed those qualities, like ability to work alone without a lot of guidance. And not really alone, we have a lot of teamwork, but like without a lot of guidance, and to deliver fast results without being afraid of switching direction really fast.
Well, let's flip to scalability then. And this will be fun given you're troubleshooting Kubernetes. So did you build this to scale efficiently from day one, or have you been fighting this as you've grown and gained traction?
We are trying always to be like over provisioned a bit, like more than what we're currently supporting. But I always tell like the company, like perimeter optimization is the root of all evil. And we have a lot of really talented people here in the company. And talented people sometimes really like to think about scaling. And sometimes you don't really care about scaling. And you need like to find the balance between not needing to think about scale every day necessarily, because your system can scale 2x or like 3x the number of customers that you currently have on one hand. But on the other hand, you don't need a system that is like 1000x more scalable, like if it requires a lot of like manpower. And a lot of the early conversation that we had inside the R&D was me telling them, I understand the perfect solution would include SQS, SNS, S3, Postgres, and Redis. But what would be a fine solution that will hold us up for like the next year? Because who knows if that particular feature is really that important. Can we maybe get along with only Postgres? And a lot of the time the answer is yes. So you need someone who saw system like mature. It's really hard to do it if you have like zero experience, even if you're very talented, because you need to understand where are the places that you can like slack and basically and not invest all of your time on one hand, but what are the places that are super critical to the success of the business. I will say again, like I can share that at first we used both Postgres and Elasticsearch as our main backends, like databases. But after a while, we understand that the thing that Elasticsearch is giving us wasn't that valuable and it held us back. So we simply decided to ditch Elasticsearch and use Postgres alone. We didn't need all of these capabilities, and supporting two databases required us a lot of knowledge, time, and it consumed a lot of resources. So again, it's hard to say I'm going to delete one of my two databases, but I think it's something that really allowed us to scale up our speed.
As you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built, what are you most proud of?
I think that the thing that I'm most proud of is not really the product, to be honest. It's much more the product feedback. It's the customers who are telling us how we saved their Christmas or their Thanksgiving, or how did we help them find issues before a release of a big feature. Like there's a lot of technical achievements and product achievements which are fun. Like I love engineering. I love solving like complex problems and using cool tools and like program language, and I do enjoy it. We are doing it to bring value to our customers, and that's what we're trying to optimize in the end of the day. People were telling us, I'm not sure how did they manage before Commodore, or people that leaves their company and bring Commodore to the next company. Like, I think that's what's give me like the most pleasure and what I'm most proud of. Obviously, it couldn't be done without a lot of hard work on the product, R&D, marketing, and sales side. It's not it's not one single effort, but that's the thing I'm most proud of.
Let's flip the script a little bit. So tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
So I underestimated how valuable certain capabilities inside the product will be, and it took us a lot of time to deliver. Because we thought it's nice to have, but once we develop it, it turns out it's a must-have, because we saw the spike of usage and we saw the spike of people who are happily using Commodore. So I think that there are a lot of features that we developed that we should have developed 3 months ago or 4 months ago or 5 months ago. You always need to retro on yourself and to figure out why did you do what you do? Why didn't you ask for more feedback? Why didn't we try some slim MVP? So a startup is just as good as like his speed. So every time we're moving like slow or we fail to recognize like a certain feature, it is like, for me, it's a mistake. We also develop a lot of features that people didn't use. Not a lot, but we developed features that people didn't use, and we had to kill them. But I see those kind of things as more of like an experiment, and I don't believe you can succeed without having a couple of like failed features that you thought will be great, but they aren't.
Well, this will be fun to ask. What does the future look like for the product and for your team?
We see more and more companies that are using Commodore on a daily basis. And what I want to see is like more companies using Commodore, and we already see it, but I want more and more companies. And inside the company, I want to see more users using us more frequently. Basically, Commodore goal is to be like synonymous with Kubernetes. If you have Kubernetes and you are not using Commodore, then something is not okay here. Regarding the company, a year and a half ago, it was only me and Ben, like 2 people. We are currently 40, and I believe we are going to double ourselves by the end of the year. We are hiring for Kubernetes experts, if anyone is hearing, and marketing and sales and so on. So we see a lot of growth going forward. I think we are lucky enough not only to have the right team, but also we're in the right time, in the right place. Like more and more people are moving into Kubernetes. More and more people understand that they can't really utilize or use Kubernetes without a system like Commodore. So I feel that like Kubernetes, it's like a beacon that everyone are just going there like almost blindly sometimes. They need someone to help them understand how to use it, how to best configure it, how to detect issues, how to prevent them, how to solve them. And I think like Commodore will be the tool for like everyone who is using Kubernetes, basically. I really believe that we are on the verge of a very big tide, and we're simply like surfing it. I hope it's an expression in English.
Let's switch to you. Who influences the way that you work? Name a CEO, CTO, an architect, really any person you look up to, and why?
So a lot of people. First of all, I will mention like my partner, like Ben Florida, the CEO of Commodore, that I believe is amazing at what he's doing, but also I think that we are working really well together. Startup, it's not, at least for my case, it's not like a lonely battle. Like you have someone with you every place of like every place in the along the way. So I will say Ben. I also try to have a lot of advisors who are helping me, people who are CTO or was CTOs or experienced product managers, and to surround myself with people who already experience what they are having and can save me a lot of frustration or calm me down. So I think like making sure you surround yourself with like very good people is critical. I was really lucky to work in like I said, like very good companies, both eBay, Fortran, and Rookout. I had a VP R&D that really influenced me in Fortran, named Oren Ellenbogen, which is really good. He has a newsletter and he writes a lot about R&D leadership. So I think he really helped me to develop as a developer and as a person, and also like in Rookout. So like a lot of people, and obviously my wife, Adi, the most influencer out of all. Even when I try like to think about what do you need in order to succeed as a startup without a really good and strong support at home, it's simply impossible.
Well, we talked about a mistake earlier, but a little bit different spin. If you could go back to the beginning, what would you do differently, or where would you consider taking a different approach?
I think that as much as we tried, I would make the MVP even smaller. Like it took us 3 months, and I believe that because we weren't really sure what we were building back then, what's the really minimum. I would try to shorten that time period from, I don't know, like to 2 months maybe, or even month, because we learned so much more once we had customers using the MVP, that every day that we didn't release it was a mistake. So I think like that's the one thing that I would change. The other one is to set clearer goals from a company standpoint. I think now that we grow, I see the importance of having a very clear goals. It might be like inspirational goals. It doesn't have to be like it's helpful if it's also like metric driven. But having very clear goals make other people in the company much more effective, because everyone are looking and optimizing for the same goal, and they are trying to move the boat to the same direction and making as clear as possible. I think it's super valuable, and I think I didn't really understand it back then, the importance of setting very clear goals, and it is something I'm trying to do better since then.
Well, last question. So you're getting on a plane, and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world. Can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
Did you validate it with customers or with the market? I see a lot, and I try to help a lot of like entrepreneurs that are asking me for help or asking me to raise money or connection or whatever. And I'm doing it like happily. But I think most of them don't really understand the pain and the problem that they are trying to solve versus the alternative, versus like the money, the effort, like everything. So simply understand the customer really well and the customer ecosystem really well. I think it's very tempting to see a problem and try to solve it without understanding how acute is it and how is it currently being solved. Just double down or like triple down on what are you really trying to solve, and is it really going to change for the end user that you have in mind, and really ask him and validate it. And back then we did a lot of interviews with DevOps, with dev, with VP-R&Ds, with CTOs, and we try to understand the current problems, the current needs, the current pains, and I think it helped us tremendously to this day. And we also read the MOM test, which allow you to conduct those kind of interviews better. So I think like that's the number one advice that I bring pretty much everyone.
Well, that's great advice. Well, Itiel, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for telling the creation story of Commodore.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. Support the show on patreon.com/codestory for just $5 to $10 a month. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
Now Taxes is 100% free when you file in the TurboTax app if you didn't file with us last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just do your own taxes in the app by 2/18.
What if I have lots of forms?
All good, all 100% free.
What if I had 3 jobs?
Still 100% free.
What if I once saw Bigfoot?
That has nothing to do with taxes, so still 100% free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now this is Taxes. See if you qualify in the TurboTax app. Excludes TurboTax Live, must start and file in app by 2/18.